Hello, my loves. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. Hi, hello-y. My name is Loey. You like what I've done with the place? We're finally getting rid of the plain white wall here. I've only lived in this house for 3 years. In 2011, a little unknown found footage horror film going by the name of Grave Encounters premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival. This little movie would go on to be a box office success, earning back over $5 million and becoming a cult classic horror film to this day. Maybe I live in my own bubble, but every time that I mention this film and someone says, "Oh, I've never seen that, is it any good?" I'm always just shocked because to me, Grave Encounters is one of those horror cult classics that I feel like everybody who appreciates the genre should watch at some point in time. It's one of my 3 favorite horror films, and over the course of spooky season, I'm going to be bringing you a video on each one of those movies. Starting with Grave Encounters because it is just so dear to me. But before we do that, I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsor, Nurex. Nurex is a digital healthcare platform that makes it easy to get expert healthcare at every step of your journey. And one of the cool things that they can support you on is your skincare journey. With Nurex, you can work with a licensed medical provider to address your skin concerns, be it acne breakouts, hyperpigmentation, or smoothing out fine lines and wrinkles. Nurex is here to help you find a solution that works for you. Nurex offers more than 50 clinically proven, dermatologist-trusted treatments for acne, anti-aging, and melasma that work faster and are more effective than over-the-counter products. They also offer retinoid treatments, which are up to 20 times more powerful than over-the-counter retinols. So trust me when I say Nurex will find something that works for you and your skin. Plus, you can skip the in-person appointment and get a medical consultation day or night. Patients get a personalized treatment plan as well as unlimited messaging with Nurex providers so that you have 24/7 access to care and support. Taking control of your health starts here. Go to nurex.com/LoeyLane or click the link in my description box down below to get started with Nurex today. That's NURX.com/LoeyLane or click the link in my description box down below to get started with Nurex today. You can probably tell by the length of this video, but I will be fully spoiling the movie in this video. So if you want to go and watch it, I will have it linked down below. It is free on YouTube. And if you have ever let me influence you on anything, please let it be watching Grave Encounters. The film follows a group of ghost hunters as they film for a fictional TV show called Grave Encounters. And if you've ever seen an episode of Ghost Adventures, you'll be able to spot what Grave Encounters is parodying right away. But when I tell you it's so much more than that, I really do mean it. It is so campy and funny and terrifying. And some of the scares in this film, I think about still to this day, a decade after I saw it for the first time. So one final warning, if you want to click off of this video, go watch Grave Encounters. Again, I'll have it linked down below. It is entirely free on YouTube. And if you don't go watch it right now, I really hope that this video will convince you to. The film opens up with an interview scene featuring a TV producer by the name of Jerry Hatfield. Now, Jerry is behind some very prominent reality TV shows. I mean, have you ever seen Tornado Trackers? That's one of Jerry's shows. And he decided that he would make some room on his roster and take a little chance on a TV show pilot by the name of Grave Encounters. We cut to an intro of the show, and again, if you've ever watched an episode of Ghost Adventures, you recognize so much immediately. Like, you're gonna tell me Lance literally isn't Zach Bagans? Jerry says that the show was looking great. They had something really special on their hands. And honestly, things were going pretty well until episode 6 was filmed. During the filming of episode 6 of the show, which took place in an old abandoned asylum, something would transpire that would leave all 5 of the crew members of Grave Encounters completely missing. And the footage that came out of it stumps professionals to this very day. I want to be very clear about this, Jerry says. What you're about to see is not a movie, okay? This has been assembled from some 76 plus hours of raw mini DV source footage that was shot for Lance's show. Not a frame of this has been doctored. It hasn't been manipulated in any way. This is just raw footage that's been edited strictly for time. Finally, episode 6, the final episode of Grave Encounters that would ever be recorded, starts to play. We meet our ringleader, the Zach Bagans of this group, going by the name of Lance Preston. Over the course of this episode, we'll get to know Lance pretty well, but For Lance, he is definitely a paranormal enthusiast who really wants to capture something on camera, but is also not above faking things to make good TV. After all, like Jerry said in the intro, he took a chance on this little show. And if they're not getting good footage, if they're not making compelling television, they're going to be replaced. But the setup alone of episode 6 looks really promising, really terrifying. They're going to be staying overnight at the Collingwood Psychiatric Hospital. The hospital's doors were open from 1895 to 1960, housing over 80,000 patients during this time. And it was built to address a lot of the overcrowding that came from the state asylums. However, after its closure, strange and very spooky things began to happen. Things like ghostly apparitions in the windows, objects moving on their own, and sometimes even the disembodied laughter and voices of former patients throughout the halls. Lance and his crew will be spending the night in this hospital. They will be spending 8 hours literally locked inside of the asylum in hopes of capturing evidence of the paranormal on camera. It's feeling very like OG Sam and Colby. Like they are literally doing an overnight challenge video, but in this crazy haunted asylum. In the intro of the episode, they have on a lot of people who have a history with the psychiatric hospital. One of those people is a local town historian who comes on to talk about the absolutely terrifying history of the Collingwood Psychiatric Hospital. And you can imagine that from this point in time, things were not the best in these types of mental asylums. It was built because there was so much overcrowding in the state asylum, and really it became less of a place for people to get help and recover from mental illness, and more of a dumping ground for people who would be considered embarrassing by their family members. One doctor in this hospital would become incredibly infamous, and that was Arthur Friedkin. Now, when Arthur came to this hospital, it was because he was like a world-renowned brain surgeon. The man was the leading authority on lobotomies at the time. And over the course of his career, he had performed over 140 lobotomies. Like the man was obsessed with them. But then 6 patients, all of whom had received Friedkin's operation, broke out of their rooms one night and stabbed him to death. It was brutal. It made the town's paper. Shortly after that was when the hospital was closed. Even knowing that history, Lance and his crew are keen to stay overnight. I mean, it's gonna be great TV. With a story like that behind this place, how could there not be some kind of paranormal activity? As they approach the front of the asylum, they see spray painted in green on the door the phrase "Death awaits." As for me, if I had seen that, I would have been out of there before you could say grave encounters, but they're braver than I am, I guess. And they enter the asylum. You can tell the minute they're inside, this place is going to be good for TV. An abandoned asylum riddled with ghost stories. Oh, by the way, the power doesn't work. It's pitch black at night, so the only thing that they'll have to guide themselves will be the flashlights on their person, and they will be ghost hunting in this asylum by themselves overnight. And you can tell that especially Lance is pretty excited about the location. He talks to the caretaker a bit for the camera, and the caretaker gives a couple of ghost stories. Pretty standard stuff, I feel like. Feeling like somebody is watching you when you know you're in a room alone. A window that opens on its own, even when the caretaker knows that it's been closed in the past. The hospital does have a ton of lore, but a lot of these stories feel like ones you've heard before. That is, until a contractor who had actually worked at the hospital back when the state thought that they were gonna like renovate it and maybe they were gonna try to get it up and running again. The state hired this man, Gary Crawford, and his contracting company to come in and do some work on the hospital. And during the time of Gary's crew working at the hospital, weird stuff started happening. Tools going missing overnight. Some of the guys claimed they heard weird noises when they would be working alone in a room. And then an accident occurred. See, while one of Crawford's men was on a tall ladder, he claimed that something pushed him. He fell from the ladder, hit the ground, and really banged up his knee. He swore to everyone he didn't fall, he was pushed, and he quit that day, refusing to come back. And I think that's a pretty creepy story, but Lance felt like they needed more. He went so far as to bribe the gardener outside of the asylum into giving them like fake ghost stories. But the location literally speaks for itself. I mean, there's one room where a patient had been scribbling all over the walls over the course of his stay in the asylum. One of the phrases actually that the camera focuses in on says, "Demons in the walls, demons in the halls. Demons in my mind, demons you will find." As we get closer to nightfall, it's clear that Lance really is hopeful something will happen, but he's not really betting on it. That's why he's been getting all of these stories and all of this B-roll, because he's worried that they're not going to catch anything. After all, they're 6 episodes in and nothing has happened so far. But before we enter the hospital, now is probably a good time to meet the Grave Encounters crew. We have our host Lance, who I feel like we've all met pretty well at this point. He's a paranormal enthusiast who really hasn't had any paranormal activity happen to him in the past. He wants to be a believer, but filming Grave Encounters has almost made him into a skeptic. But the rest of the crew consists of a man named TC, who works as the cameraman. He's like getting all the B-roll for the episode. He's filming time lapses on the roof and stuff. We have one lone girly pop. Her name is Sasha, and she is an occultist specialist who ends up doing a lot of the ghost hunting once we enter the asylum. We have a producer named Matt, who we haven't seen do much at this point aside from like chain smoke cigarettes. And finally, we have a medium who goes by the name of Houston Gray. Now, Houston is like a pseudo-celebrity in his own right, and he's made his living off of communing with the dead. When Houston walks into the hospital, it's like right away he can feel a lot of the energy around them. He's picking up on the hot spots that the caretaker had already pointed out to the crew. It's like he's just affirming every single legend we've heard of this place so far. Because he is. Houston is not a real medium. We learn that pretty quickly because when Lance calls cut, Houston immediately drops the act. So we have Lance, TC, Sasha, Matt, and Houston. And together, these 5 people walk into Collingwood Psychiatric Hospital and watch as Kenny, the caretaker, locks and closes the door behind them. Before he did, he promised he would be back at the crack of dawn at 6 sharp to open up the doors and let them out. But for now, they are literally chained inside. And I mean it when I say they're trapped. There are no other ways out of this hospital than the front door that they walked in from. Because this place was an asylum, every single window is barred. There are no other exits or entrances. As the ghost hunting begins, nothing is really caught at first. No EVPs, no orbs on the cameras, absolutely nothing. And even though we've seen Lance kind of prepare for this up until this point, you can tell he's really disappointed by the lack of evidence. From here, the movie is divided between static cameras that they set up throughout the paranormal hotspots throughout the asylum, as well as handheld cameras that they talk to like vlog style. The night passes pretty uneventfully. I mean, 4.5 hours into their ghost hunting experience, the entire group is just sitting in the lobby, listening to music, talking, eating, laughing, and it looks like this is going to be just another uneventful ghost hunting experience. Until TC, the cameraman, goes down a hallway alone to get some B-roll for the episode. He finds this lone wheelchair in the hallway, and he's looking at it wondering, how did I not see that before? It doesn't matter. Lance is going to love this. And as TC is filming the wheelchair, he gets a call. It turns out that it's TC's wife calling to say that their daughter can't sleep. So TC says, put her on the phone, I'll talk to her. He tries to calm his daughter down. Mommy tells me you're afraid of monsters under the bed? Monsters aren't real, baby. And if they were real, they wouldn't want to come to our house because Daddy would take care of them for you. As he says that monsters aren't real, behind him, the wheelchair moves ever so slightly. The camera picks it up, but TC doesn't see it for now. Blissfully ignorant to the paranormal activity he has just captured on camera, TC goes on to film some B-roll of a bathroom. As he's about to leave, the door slams in his face. And this is the first paranormal thing that any of them think they've captured on camera. So the entire crew comes running to the bathroom to talk to a very frantic TC who swears that he knows what he saw. It wasn't a draft, it wasn't like the door just kind of creaked closed on its own. It was slammed right in his face. The crew tries to make contact with the spirit, but nothing happens. And once again, Lance is left disappointed. I thought we were actually gonna have something here. Suddenly, he's cut off by a loud slam from down the hallway. The crew runs out to investigate this, and what they find is a hospital bed, a gurney, that was knocked over as if it was pushed down the hall by somebody. It was going so fast, in fact, that the wheels are still turning when the crew finds it. And it's as if Lance's wishes have finally come true. They're getting real paranormal activity on camera. Sasha tries to do an EVP with the spirit. What's your name? What do you want? Are you in the room with us? Where are you? Come on, Sash, play it back, says Lance. Sasha rewinds the tape. What's your name? What do you want? Are you in the room with us? Where are you? After the final question, a high-pitched noise can be heard through the recorder. As everyone's trying to discern what it is, something lifts a chunk of Sasha's hair, and she starts screaming. She, along with the rest of the crew, are absolutely terrified by this because what do you mean? They've never captured a ghost on camera, and now one is literally lifting pieces of her hair? But Lance is excited. This is exactly what they've been looking for. They've spent 6 episodes trying to capture this on camera, and now they finally have a ghost and the rest of the crew is freaking out? Sasha's done. Something tugged on her hair, like she's not participating anymore. So she ends up going back to the lobby, and TC, Houston, and Lance all try to make contact with the spirit. They are unsuccessful. Houston, the fake medium, tries to console Lance. He's like, I think it had its fun. It played its prank and it got out of here. But Lance isn't convinced, and he pulls out a photo camera. This is an interesting thing that this movie does 3 times. It did it once earlier in the film, it does it now, and it'll do it kind of closer to the end. And that is this mechanic where Lance will pick up this photo camera that they have, like a film camera, and he'll take photos around them to see if he captures any kind of ghosts on camera. The crew will never see these photos, but we as the audience do. And in the second round of pictures, Lance captures orbs in one photo, a large spectral misty figure in another, and then in the third, what looks like somebody standing outside of a window with their hands against the glass. It's getting late. Well, it's getting early. We're getting closer and closer to 6 a.m. and the crew begins to pack up to finish up what they're doing, and they start getting ready to head out. But the weirdest thing happens when Lance and the rest of the crew try to go and meet Matt and Sasha in the lobby. They're lost. They can't find their way out. And every time that they try to radio Sasha and Matt, nobody is answering. In fact, it sounds like the radio doesn't even go through. Finally, everyone regroups in the lobby and Lance is like, did you guys not hear us over the radio? Like, we called for you. And Matt says, no, we didn't hear anything. Either way, the caretaker Kenny actually isn't there yet to open up the doors, so Lance sends Matt off alone and says, go pack up all the cameras, okay? So that when Kenny gets here, we're just ready to go. Matt does not want to do this alone, okay? Matt wants to be the one to survive the horror movie, but Lance does not hear him out, sends him off into the darkness alone. Matt packs up the cameras, but when he comes to one room, the room that the caretaker said he would find a window open occasionally, he notices that the window is indeed open. And he's like, oh my God, like we caught this on camera. This is huge. This is paranormal activity. He pulls out the radio and he calls for Lance. There's no answer. Lance, I've got something up here. No answer. He hears a sound, a loud banging noise from outside of the room. He goes to investigate, and suddenly we cut back to the group in the lobby, and a lot of time has passed. Matt hasn't come back. He's not answering the radio. They haven't heard from him. They obviously can't see this footage, so they have no idea that he had heard something and gone to investigate. So they decide, okay, we've got to go find him in this hospital. Granted, the sun still hasn't come up, which is kind of weird. It's getting to early morning at this point, but it's still really dark out. No matter, they decide they're going to go look for him. Maybe he tripped, maybe he fell, maybe his flashlight died. Well, the crew finds all of Matt's camera equipment scattered around the hallway. and they're fearing for the worst. Nobody can get in touch with him. They don't even hear him yelling through the hospital. Lance says he and Sasha will go one way, TC will check the other way. Houston, by the way, the fake medium, he stayed in the lobby. He was having none of this. For a medium who you would think would be used to the paranormal, he sure is a scaredy cat. Anyway, Lance says me and Sasha will go one way, TC, you go the other. Why would we split up? Asks Sasha. That's a terrible idea. TC goes off on his own, and we hear him calling through the hospital. Matt, where are you, man? I want to go home. This is enough. You're freaking us out now. Come on, Matt, this is stupid, dude. You better be dead or dying, bro. As TC is calling out for Matt, he hears something moving behind him, and he turns around to see nothing. Suddenly, something shoves TC down the stairs and he goes flying down an entire flight of stairs to the ground where he screams in pain. Lance and Sasha hear it and of course they come running and TC tells them, something pushed me down the stairs. I'm done with this. They still don't have Matt. But it's about time for Kenny the caretaker to show up. I mean, it's actually a little bit past 6 at this point. So they decide to head back to the lobby, wait for Kenny, get his help, and then go searching for Matt again. Hopefully Kenny will have more lights they can use. Maybe the sun will be up and it'll be easier to search. When they're back in the lobby, TC is freaking out. I mean, he's just been shoved down a staircase by something. In fact, TC has had a lot of the paranormal activity happen to him tonight. So he's freaking, rightfully so. And Kenny still hasn't shown up. The caretaker still isn't there to let them out. TC is yelling at Lance, call Kenny, where is this man? Why is he late? This is why you shouldn't have had us locked in a freaking hospital, bro. Lance tries to call Kenny, but the weirdest thing happens. He has no service. In fact, none of them do. And it's still so dark outside and they can't see a thing, and TC is done with this. He is finished with this asylum. He's finished with his experiences there. He goes and gets a gurney, like one of the hospital gurneys. He takes a couple of steps back and then runs headfirst into the locked, chained doors in hopes of busting them open. They don't budge. Lance scolds him. You can't break down the door, TC. No, we're gonna cause damage to the hospital. We're gonna be liable for it. Just be patient. TC isn't hearing it. He slams the gurney into the front door again, and once again, the door does not open. Lance is yelling at him, like, man, this is gonna come out of your rate. TC's like, do you think I care about my rate? I was just shoved down a flight of stairs. Something pulled Sasha's hair. Matt is missing. This man still hasn't shown up. Help me get this door open. And Lance has to be at least somewhat on the same page because he agrees and he stands up and he helps TC ram this gurney into the front door. This time, as they run into the front doors, they burst open. You'd think they would be relieved. I mean, they've finally broken out of this asylum. It's not exactly conventional, but hey, at least they can see the outside world, right? Instead, both of them take a step back. Lance picks up one of the cameras, and we see that the front doors that they walked in from, the ones that should lead outside, they lead down another hallway of the hospital. This can't be right. They must have gotten turned around somehow, but how could that even be? They entered in this door. This is the door that's chained up outside. They've been in the lobby, like they know where they came in from, and yet there's more of the hospital beyond these front doors. As they're trying to figure it out, Sasha calls out to them. The entire crew turns to face her as she closes those doors that they've just broken down, and they see that on the other side of them is written in green spray paint, "Death awaits." These are the doors they came in from, the ones they shot outside, but they're still in the hospital. They find the nearest emergency exit sign. They break down that door, but it just leads to more of the hospital. So the exit signs are leading down more hallways, the windows are all barred shut, and it seems like they're really trapped inside this time. Because how have they gotten so lost during their overnight stay there? That's when Lance realizes something. The sunrise was supposed to be a couple of minutes after 7 a.m., and it's 8 now. And the sky is still pitch black outside. Maybe this is an electrical anomaly. Maybe there's something in the energetic field that caused all of their clocks to speed up on the equipment and on their phones. Any minute now, Kenny will be there to let them out. But where is he gonna find them? Where are they in the hospital? Lance continues to document all of this. It's like he doesn't really know what else to do. The rest of the crew is like, man, turn that camera off. Like, we don't know where Matt is. We don't know where we are. Just stop filming all of this. But Lance feels like they need to record it. I checked my cell phone, he says, and it says that the time is 1:12. It's 1:12 p.m. I don't think that's right, but I guess it can't be right. I don't know. Everyone's very tired, so they're taking a nap. I'm taking a break. And we're just gonna wait until Kenny shows up. I don't know where the hell he's gonna meet us. Doesn't make any sense. I haven't slept in like 20 hours. I don't know. I'm gonna just set my alarm for an hour and take a nap. He sleeps way more than an hour. We see the time passing on the static cameras. We're around 21 hours from the point when they first entered the hospital. And from one of the static cameras, one of the ones pointed into the lobby where we can see the entire crew, sans Matt, sleeping, we watch as something knocks over their only light source, leaving them shrouded in darkness. Sasha wakes up screaming. The entire crew is wide awake and so confused, like what just happened to the light? Then Lance picks up a camera. TC went to get a sandwich, he says. You gotta see this. He pans to the cooler, one where they had kept various snacks and sandwiches for their overnight stay. The food is moldy, some of it covered in maggots, as if it's been rotting for weeks, not just sitting in a cooler overnight. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They're completely in the dark. And suddenly TC remembers, hey, for the beginning of this episode, I recorded a time lapse on the roof. There's rooftop access. If we get up there, we could find the fire escape and maybe we could climb down and get help and then come back for Matt. And they have nothing better to do. They've been in there for almost 24 hours. They have like no water, no food, no service. The exit has disappeared. They're missing a crew member. What do they have to lose? So the 4 remaining crew members, Lance, TC, Houston, and Sasha, go looking for the fire escape. Not too far into their search, they actually find the sign pointing up to rooftop access. And they are running up these stairs. I mean, finally, they found a way out. But when TC reaches the top of the stairs, he realizes that there's just a wall, a blank wall, a solid wall. There's no door, there's no rooftop access, but this is where he came before. TC starts having a breakdown, man. I mean, they all do. The hospital seems like it's changing all around them. They can't find an exit anywhere. Lance tries to stay calm. I mean, he is the host here. He is like the one in charge. He's the one who dragged them all into this. He has to be the one to get them out. They find a map of the asylum on the wall, one of those ones that says like, you are here. And as they're trying to orient themselves, trying to figure out like which way they could go to another exit, we see that their compass is moving erratically, spinning in circles, so that they have no idea which way they're going. Something screams down the hallway. It's faint, but it's there. And everyone realizes, oh my God, it's Matt. They chase the source of the screaming, calling out his name, and they find an empty room.
My footage for this part got corrupted, but when they got into the room, they realized that one of the gurneys was flying into the air and being tossed at them. So they run, they end up taking like shelter in a nearby closet and taking a nap. And when they wake up, Sasha has the word hello carved into her back. After this, the group leaves to look for Matt again. Suddenly, what looks like Matt runs behind TC, and the group chases him down into what seems to be an empty room at first.
Suddenly, Houston points to a corner of the room. Everyone looks where he's pointing, only to find what looks like a figure standing in the corner of the room as if in timeout. It's barely visible even with the camera's night vision, but it doesn't look like Matt. In fact, it looks like a woman. The woman turns and looks at the camera, and her face distorts. The crew runs down the hallway and manages to barricade themselves inside of a large closet to get away from her. Everyone is freaking out and panicking, and they're turning off the camera lights to try to keep themselves shrouded and hidden away from this entity. But Lance can be heard saying, I got it on tape. I caught it on tape. We could see a face. Did you see her face? One of the other crew members has to physically cover his mouth to shut him up as the entity passes them in the hallway. Even after everything that they've been through, Part of Lance is so excited that they finally caught something paranormal on camera. Meanwhile, the only 3 people in the closet right now are actually only Lance, TC, and Sasha. It's then that we cut to a shot from one of the static cameras in the halls, and we watch Houston stumble down a dark hallway. Remember, the sun never came up, the hospital lights don't work, and Houston doesn't have a flashlight or anything to guide his way. So he's grabbing onto the walls and he's yelling, "Lance, Sasha, TC, anyone?" Suddenly, he's lifted from the floor by an invisible force, and we see him grabbing at his neck as if something is pulling him up by the throat. He's tossed to the ground as if he weighs nothing, and he scrambles to get up, shouting for help. There's a bright flash of light. He falls to the ground, and Houston is gone. The rest of the crew knows that Houston is gone, but they don't know that he's gone, you know what I mean? So Lance is doing another one of his little check-ins with the camera. We've been hiding in this room for a couple of hours. Houston's gone. We tried Matt on the radio, but no luck. Something groans from the hallway and Lance pauses. We keep hearing crazy stuff like that all around us. I don't know how much longer we're gonna last. We're not alone anymore. They need to conserve battery power on the cameras. I mean, at this point, those flashlights on the cameras are some of the only light sources that they have left. So they turn off the cameras and they all try to get some rest. But when they wake up, Sasha is screaming again. But this time, instead of something carved into her back, she's screaming because she has on a white hospital bracelet, like the kind they give to a patient when they intake them into a hospital. The 3 remaining crew members all have one on, with their names, their birthdays, and it seems like now they've finally been admitted as patients to the psychiatric hospital. The 3 of them make their way out of the closet and start looking again for Matt and Houston and trying to find some kind of a way out. They come across a hall of open doors that certainly had not been opened before, and it sounds like the hospital is coming to life around them. You can hear the sound of patients chattering back and forth, what sounds like equipment being moved, but you never see anything. And they are just walking in circles. "We still can't find Matt and Houston," Lance says to the camera. "Will you stop?" Sasha says. "Are you kidding me? We aren't making a TV show." "I'm just documenting stuff," says Lance. "People are gonna want to see this." "Matt and Houston are gone. We need to concentrate on getting out of here and finding them, and you just keep doing this." "Okay," Lance says. "Okay, just stay together, guys." And it seems like that finally gets through to Sasha, and she kind of calms down for a minute. Suddenly, a hand reaches through the door behind her, breaking the window pane, and an arm wraps around her shoulders as if it's trying to physically pull her through the door. Lance manages to rip her away, but the creature gives chase and they are running for their lives down the hallway. But they have not had food or water in a long time. They have not slept properly in a long time, and Sasha is exhausted and she collapses. TC is screaming at the 2 of them, get up, come on, we gotta go." But Sasha can't do it. She's crying and telling Lance she can't do it, and he helps her to her feet. "I know. You gotta do this, okay? You gotta get up. We gotta get going." Suddenly, TC screams from down the hallway, and Lance and Sasha come running. They're yelling back to him down the hall, "What's going on? What do you see? Just get down here. Just get over here." Lance and Sasha come running, and when they catch up with TC, he's standing in the doorway of a seemingly empty room. And as Lance walks inside, he realizes it's not empty at all. Matt is sitting on the floor in a white hospital gown, looking incredibly out of it, like he has no idea where he is. Lance tries to get his attention, but it's like Matt is in some sort of a trance. It's not until Lance touches him on the shoulder that Matt gasps and jumps and starts speaking. "Patient exhibits acute compulsive disorder linked to childhood phobia," he rambles. They hear the entity nearby growling from the hallway, and they grab Matt, dragging him into a nearby patient room, closing and locking the door behind them. Matt is there, but you can tell he's not really there. Like, he's physically there, but his eyes are wild and he looks terrified. "Matt, how did you get these clothes? Where did you get all of this from?" He doesn't respond. It's like he can't respond. He's so scared into silence. TC has had enough. Matt, I don't know where you've been, but you probably know a way out of here. You've got to know a way out of here. Up until this point, Matt has been entirely silent. But after TC talks to him, he laughs. Of course there's a way out, he says. We can all leave as soon as we're better. What do you mean when we're better? What does that mean? Matt shakes his head. I wasn't ready yet. Progress is slow, but the patient is responding to treatment. It's like he's somewhere else entirely, as if he has literally been admitted to the hospital all this time, and the others have no idea what's happened to him. From the hall, we hear the creature groaning and growling again, and that seems to scare Matt. It's like he knows what's out there, and that's the one thing that really freaks him out. Don't be sad, he says. Everything's going to be okay. He can help you too. They stay in this room for a while. It seems like their best bet to stay safe from the entity. TC and Matt are both fast asleep, while Lance sits with Sasha. I don't feel good, Sasha says. I think there's something wrong with me. Lance feels her forehead, and she does have a fever. He pulls what's left from his water bottle out of his bag and gives it to her, telling her to take a sip. Something interesting about Lance is that even in the danger of all of this, he's still obsessed with the idea of capturing the paranormal on camera. They don't even know if they're going to make it out of this alive, and his priority is still documenting what's happening here. But he seems to have a really soft spot for Sasha, and he's doing his best to keep her okay. The camera's cut, and when they come back, the footage is glitchy, the sound is distorted, and all we see are what looks like dozens of black hands reaching out from the ceiling, from the walls. The group runs from the room, and eventually they come upon a bathroom that was one of the paranormal hotspots from earlier, one where it said that the spirit of a woman can be found in the bathtub. They're hiding, they're trying to be quiet, they're trying to hide the lights from the cameras, when suddenly TC says, "There's blood in the tub." The others look, and indeed, in the tub where it said that a woman self-exited, there's blood filled up to the brim. The others know that they need to get out of there. So TC walks back to them, and he and Lance and Sasha are slowly walking out of the room. But Matt goes to look at the tub as if he's expecting to see something inside. TC tries to grab him, to pull him along, but Matt dodges his grasp. TC gets a little too close to the bathtub, and then suddenly a woman reaches up from the bloody water, grabs his body, and pulls him beneath the surface. The others scream, and the camera falls to the floor, and you hear Lance saying, "Help me flip the tub! Help me flip the tub!" Suddenly, we see red liquid spill all over the concrete floor. It splashes onto the camera lens, and Sasha screams. He's gone. TC is gone, disappeared into thin air. And now all that's left is Sasha, Lance, and Matt. As the three of them continue to try to find a way out, they come across an elevator, one that seems like it could be pried open if they had the right equipment. So Lance leaves Sasha and Matt by the elevator. He says, "Stay right here. I'm gonna go find something to open this." He walks through the hallways and through the rooms until finally he finds a gurney bed that had been flipped over, one that he can use to wedge into the metal doors of the elevator and open it. But just as he's about to leave the room, he notices something on the floor nearby. And at first he's like, what is that? And as he gets closer, he realizes it's a human tongue. He's disgusted by this until he realizes there's blood dripping on the floor beside the tongue. He looks up to see a man in a white patient gown, his mouth wide open, his tongue missing. The entity gives chase, and Lance runs down the hallway back to Sasha and Matt with the pole and starts trying to open up the elevator. He manages to get it open, but the entity is still chasing them down, and they're not going to be able to climb down the elevator shaft in time. And so he shoves the bar into Sasha's hand and he says, "Stay back, stay here." Sasha screams after him as he runs down the hall, camera in hand, and he switches on the night vision. And we realize Lance is trying to get footage of the ghost. After all of this, he still wants to capture proof of the paranormal before ensuring his and his friends' safety. And it would be a decision that would cost him another member of the crew. because the entity attacks as he's trying to get this footage. Sasha runs down the hallway, and together they manage to close and barricade the door to the little hallway that they're in so that they can keep this entity, this demon, this tongueless thing out. And while they are struggling to hold it closed, struggling not to let the demon in, Matt picks up one of the cameras that's been tossed onto the floor, and he's looking at himself in the viewfinder. He's kind of smiling. He starts giggling, and then that fades as he turns to look at the open elevator. And we watch as he falls down the shaft. By the time that Sasha and Lance have fended off the entity, it's too late. Matt is gone, and now they are all that's left. Sasha and Lance climb down the elevator shaft, but he's gone. Matt's gone. And the only thing that they know to do now is to try to escape through the underground tunnels beneath the hospital. See, the asylum used to be like a bunch of different buildings. They're just in one of these buildings. And underneath are these tunnels that the caretaker had told them, hey, like, you should probably not come down to these because if you lose your light, you're not getting out of here. Like, these are long tunnels. You'll probably just like never be found. Don't come down here if you can manage it. They still, of course, had cameras and stuff set up down there, but until now, they haven't ventured into the tunnels. Together, Sasha and Lance begin walking through the tunnels, trying to find their way out, trying to find their way to one of the other buildings, hoping if they can just get out of this building, maybe they'll find another one with an exit. If they just keep walking, they should be okay. They should be able to make it out, but the junction that connects them to the other tunnels leading to other hospital buildings, it never comes. Just like the rest of the hospital, the tunnels have changed around them into a never-ending hallway. And Sasha isn't doing too good. She collapses and starts coughing, and as Lance kneels down beside her, he realizes that she's coughing up blood. He manages to help her further into the hall, where one of the static cameras is still set up for their paranormal investigation. On this camera, the timestamp, the one that's been counting the amount of hours that they have been in this building, it started glitching. Like, time doesn't exist anymore. Sasha falls asleep and rests her head on Lance's shoulder as he speaks to the camera. It's day here. It's day. I don't even know what day it is. We spent all day walking in one direction. We didn't get anywhere. My feet are killing me. Sasha looks just as sick as she feels. I mean, she's pale. She's not even conscious. She's coughing up blood. Sasha's not gonna make it, Lance says. She can't give up. Lance and Sasha are sleeping in the hallway, and he has his arms around her. He has her literally pressed against his body like he's trying to protect her from whatever is in this hospital. And we watch as a strange mist starts to roll in, almost what looks like a fog, and it comes closer and closer and closer until it shrouds the two of them and passes the camera. And when it dissipates, Lance is alone and Sasha is gone. Lance runs through the halls trying to find Sasha, screaming her name. And as he does, his flashlight finally dies. And this is the worst part of the hospital, to be without a light, because he is in these tunnels and there is nothing to guide him back out. Lance is alone in the dark and he crumbles to the ground, and he pulls out the EVP recorder, the little tape recorder that they used earlier when they were still ghost hunting in the hospital. He sits there with it and he asks, "What do you want from me?" And as he plays it back, we can hear what sounds like voices screaming in the background, as well as the entity growling and groaning among them. Lance breaks down sobbing. He turns off the camera. And then we have one final check-in from him where he talks to us, the viewer of Grave Encounters. "I'm running low on battery power," he says. "The camera is his only source of light. The flashlight has died. He has nothing except for the little dinky light on this camera. I don't really need the light anymore," he says. "Just keep walking straight. I could walk in the dark for hours. It's kind of like a game. There's a really gruesome scene here involving a rat that I will not describe to you. I will say that in the end credits, they do have a little footnote saying no rats were eaten over the course of this film. Lance has to eat something, man. He's got to survive somehow. So there's this really gruesome scene and he's eating his meal and he's laughing maniacally to the camera and it's so gruesome. And finally, the last light source that he has goes out. The light on the camera dies. And he hears the entity growling and he hears patients laughing maniacally around him and he has lost his mind. And remember those words that were scratched on the wall in that room where the patient was writing all over the wall at literally the beginning of the film? Demons in the walls? Lance asks. Not in here. Not in here with me. Come and get me. And the entity is growling louder and louder. The screen cuts to black. And for a minute, you almost think the footage has cut out, that that's it, that the entity just came and got him, and that's the end of this final episode of Grave Encounters. After a moment, Lance suddenly comes back, and it's like he's way more lucid than before, like just completely different from how he was the last time we saw him. I just woke up, he says. I don't know how long I was out, but there's the door. And he pans the camera, and we see a large metal door in the middle of the tunnel that we hadn't seen before. Inside of this room is medical equipment, along with scribblings of what looks like lobotomy notes on a chalkboard. And we realize that this is Arthur Friedkin's office, the doctor who worked at this hospital who ended up giving all of the patients lobotomies. But in addition to all of the quote unquote normal lobotomy stuff, Lance also finds what looks like evidence of human experiments, photographs of patients in the hospital with things done to their body that completely defy all logic, as if they were the subjects of these grotesque experiments at the hands of Friedkin. Patients whose bodies had been torn apart and stitched back together, and Lance keeps walking until he suddenly finds a human skull in the middle of a ritual circle. Nearby is this weird book and quill, and Lance looks through the book and it's all written in runes, and you realize this wasn't just human experiments. Friedkin was doing some kind of ritual on these people, a ritual that may be the reason why the hospital has become what it has today. As Lance is reading the book and trying to come to terms with all of this, it sounds like metal hits something on the floor behind him, and he turns around and he sees a doctor in a white lab coat surrounded by two nurses. And they're facing a patient, one on the receiving end of Friedkin's lobotomy. Lance stumbles backwards. He falls to the ground. The camera goes down with him. And when he stands back up, we see that the doctor, Arthur Friedkin himself, is right in front of Lance. He looks at him for a minute, and then his face distorts, and we hear that familiar roar of the entity that we've heard throughout the entire movie. The camera falls to the ground, and Lance starts screaming as if he's struggling against someone. "No, I'm not crazy," he yells. "I'm not crazy." The demons can be heard screeching behind him, and this god-awful sound like metal hitting bone can be heard, and the camera cuts out. When we see Lance again, it's post-procedure. He said, "I'm all better now. I can finally go home." For Grave Encounters, I'm Lance Preston, signing off. That's where it cuts out, and the credits finally roll. And in the universe of this film, that's the footage that eventually found the public. The footage that at the beginning of the movie, the TV producer said, this is not edited. This was pulled from some 76 hours of footage, and it's just been condensed for time. 76 hours of footage, by the way. We know that they were only supposed to be in there like overnight, and there's not really a way to gauge how much time was spent inside of the asylum, as everyone was just picked off one by one. If they had been filming nonstop, they would have been in there for around 3 days, but we know that they weren't filming nonstop. Not at all. The hospital had warped around them into a strange vortex of space and time, and there's really no telling how long they were actually inside, as the sun never rose and nobody ever came to find them. For the crew of Grave Encounters, their fate was sealed the minute that they walked into that hospital. There were only ever two ways that they were going to escape Collingwood Psychiatric Hospital. And for Matt, the lobotomy clearly wasn't enough. I mean, I guess we never know if he had the lobotomy or not, but he came back from being missing all that time, and he said that he had been cured, that he cured Matt. He, I'm assuming, being Friedkin. It becomes clear by the end of this film that Friedkin was not even just performing like lobotomies. He wasn't just abusing his power, giving people lobotomies left and right. He was performing human experiments with seemingly a ritual aspect to it. Perhaps that's why his spirit has never left this hospital. Perhaps he's continuing his work in death. And perhaps it's why the hospital is so haunted. We'll probably never know, because there was supposed to be a Grave Encounters 3 that basically was like a prequel explaining more of the lore, like the beginning of the entire hospital's history, but it was canceled due to lack of interest. Lack of interest from whom? Grave Encounters 2 was not particularly well received, but I do want to remind you that we never saw Lance die. He got his lobotomy. He disappeared and the cameras cut out. But that's something that we'll have to talk about in my video on Grave Encounters 2. If you guys want it, that is. To this day, Grave Encounters is one of my favorite films. One of my favorite found footage horror films for sure. Probably my favorite one, followed very closely by another movie that I'd love to talk to you guys about if you liked this format. I really love As Above, So Below. That would be, I would say, like my second. But this little film with a $100,000 budget went on to be a massive cult classic in the horror space. I think it ended up pulling in like over $5 million, which is a great turnaround for a movie that didn't even cost $1 million to make. And I know like $150,000, like that's a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but in the film world, that is literally nothing. Especially when you consider that obviously Collingwood was a real hospital. It's actually a hospital in British Columbia called Riverview Hospital, and it's been used as a location in film and media for many, many years. But a location like that alone had to have cost so much money to film at. And I think that that's what makes Grave Encounters so special. You can tell the whole time that you watch it that this is someone's passion project. It's actually two people's passion projects. It is the work of the Vicious brothers, who are best known for Grave Encounters and Grave Encounters 2. When everybody made this film, nobody knew it was going to pull in money at all. Nobody knew it was going to turn a profit. And I just feel like that's what makes it so special, because it feels like an art project you could have made with your friends back in college. A lot of the scares, the things like the demonic face distorting, that's really a relic of the 2010s. You would see those distorted faces in all of those like creepy video and photo compilations here on YouTube. They would like come up and jump scare you. As far as found footage goes, to me, Grave Encounters is the best of the best, baby. There has never been a movie like it since. And because I feel like I never see it in people's like favorite scary movie roundups, I wanted to make a video about it. This has been something that I've been thinking about for years. And the reason that I've been thinking about it for years is because that script, those notes that I just referenced while I was telling you the film, that took like 5 times watching it and many hours. I have been filming this since midnight. It is 5 in the morning. It's been something I've been working on for a long time, and I'm really excited to hear how you guys like this. I'd love to talk through As Above, So Below, maybe even Grave Encounters 2 this spooky season if you guys are interested. But for now, I'm going to leave you with one final review of Grave Encounters, and that is that if you watch this entire video, hi, first and foremost, we've been hanging out for a hot freaking minute. I have been yapping your little ear off. I hope you've enjoyed it. But number 2, please watch this film. Me sitting here telling you it, it's so fun. I feel like we're sitting around a campfire when I do things like this. It's really fun for me, but nothing can compare to watching this movie in full. It is a phenomenal watch for spooky season. It is completely free on YouTube. Grave Encounters 2 isn't, but there's an upload of it that is literally one of my favorite movies of all time. And I really hope you enjoyed me breaking it down for you. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go to give me a thumbs up. Your thumbs up on this one really means a lot to me, especially if you sat through to the end of this, because I just want to know if you guys like this style of video. It's very different for me. I feel like the closest thing I've ever done to it was my Dear David video, my Dear David movie video. But I really hope you all enjoyed. If you did, go to give me a thumbs up and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. A special thank you to my subscribers who are members of the channel. If you want to join the channel memberships and get extra members exclusive perks like members only polls to help me decide on future video topics, members only videos, and so much more, you can click that little join button somewhere around the screen. We would love to have you. An extra special thank you to my VIP loves for their continued and generous support of the channel. I love and appreciate you all very, very much. I love you all very much, and I will see you in my next video. I'm gonna go to bed now. Bye.